Hey guys, happy Friday. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you have a fun and safe Halloween weekend as well. I'm going to walk you through of what we're doing today. So you found this video right in the October 30th folder. Okay, there are two assignments that you have to complete today, October 30th. So we have the 5.2 guided notes, which we're going to do first, and then this great compromise activity. Okay, so let's go to the 5.2 guided notes. So there you'll find an attached pages document. Okay, we have done this several times now, I believe. Okay, go ahead, click on the pages document, download. Okay, I'll bring you up to your downloads right here. Click on that and it'll open up right into Pages since it is a Pages document. Okay, so when that loads, okay, looks like mine's taking a little bit to load here. Yours might as well, might too. All right, well, while it's loading, all right, it's the same concept, okay, where you fill in the blanks while watching this lesson video, okay. If you have a stylus, you can be writing. If you do not, that's all right. Just delete the lines, okay, and type it in. And you'll notice there is two extra things that you'll have to do on your own, okay. There's a Venn diagram, and then there is a read analysis question again. Okay, and I want you to do both on your notes because I think they'll help. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the notes just because it seems like it's taking forever. So let's go ahead and get started with these notes. All right. So there, right, you should have your notes that we just opened up and pages open, following along now with the notes. All right, so we talked about, right, over the past 2 days, how there were a lot of problems and weaknesses, right, with the Articles of Confederation. Remember the Articles of Confederation being the United States' first form of a constitution, right? First form of how the government will be ran and the laws for our country. And so there are a lot of problems, right? We talked about how many weaknesses. I mean, the fact that they couldn't tax, right? And then we watched the Brain Pop video too, and how, right, they couldn't raise an army and all this other mess that was going on. And so they, came together on May 25th, 1787, represented from every state except for Rhode Island. They met in Philadelphia to just revise the articles. Okay, so revise means to just change, to just tweak a little bit, right? If I told you, oh, hey, revise your paragraph here, it doesn't mean delete it all and start over. No, just like kind of like tweak it, change a sentence here or there, change the wording of it, add something, maybe take just like one sentence out. Just you're changing it up a little bit, tweaking it, that sort. Okay, and so they met in Philadelphia. Philadelphia back then was pretty much like the main place where they met and did everything, right? That's where they signed the Declaration and they met for the Continental Congress, all that. So most agree the central government was too weak, but again, they're fearing that too much power that if the central government had, it would resemble the British monarchy, right? And they just left the British monarchy. They just left that abuse that the king had over them, and so they were fearful of that happening again if that federal, that central, that national government, right? The central government we're talking being the government that governs over the entire country. They feared, right, that it would have too much power. It would, it would abuse its power just like the British king had. But they agreed that it was too weak. It couldn't do anything. So instead, they drafted a new constitution. They were just like, you know what? we need a totally new document. We're going to start fresh. And so, and actually, at this Constitutional Convention, many they kept the doors shut, right? And it's May, so it's going to go all summer long, and so it's hot in there. But they kept the door shut, so no one hears anything about what's happening in there. So there's some disagreements, obviously, like we even talked about in the Articles of Confederation. Different states, they had different needs, different ways of life, their economies were different, right? The ways they made money were different. People think about it now, right? We always talk about, oh, us in Mississippi are so different from, people in Chicago. And trust me, it's true. And so people in, Massachusetts and New York are a lot different than those in South Carolina. They have different needs. And so while we do see the delegates agreeing on a new constitution, they disagreed on pretty much on the type of government that the country needed. So two different plans were drafted. First, we have the Virginia Plan. This was developed by Edmund Randolph and James Madison. They're from Virginia, okay? So they believed that they needed a strong central government. They needed the government that governs the whole country. It needs to be strong. It needs to have more power than the states had. Right? Under the Articles of Confederation, the states had more power. They also wanted 3 branches of government. Each would keep each other from being too powerful. This was kind of their way of saying, okay, this is how we're going to keep the central government from gaining too much power. They would check and balance each other, right? So not one branch was too powerful over the other. And then the legislature, which would consist of 2 houses. So again, this branch of government, the legislature, remember the legislature makes and passes the laws. So that would consist of 2 houses. So therefore, even the legislature is almost checking each other. And they believe that the number of delegates would depend on population. Okay, so based on the state's population, right, that's how many number of delegates they would get in the legislature. So who do you think this is going to benefit, right? A state that has more people, right? Because the more people you have in your state, that means you get more delegates versus another state. So let's say you get a delegate for every 25 people you have. I know this is small numbers, but easier to see with small numbers. Okay, so you get 1 delegate for every 25 people you have. Well, if Virginia has 100 people, they get 4 delegates, right? Because 100 divided by 25 is 4. Okay. Well, if New Jersey or Delaware only has 50 people, they only get 2 delegates, right? So you do 100 divided by 50 is 2, right? Or 50 divided by 25 is 2, okay? So, right, 4 versus 2, so that means Virginia gets 2 more votes, 2 more, double the power in legislature to make and pass the laws than Delaware had, right? Because they have 4 delegates versus Delaware only having 2 delegates. Okay, so this really benefited more of the larger states, the states with more population. The other plan is the New Jersey plan put out by William Paterson. So this also included 3 branches of government, but the legislature would only have 1 house. And this house would have 1 delegate per state. So who do you think this would benefit for? This is going to benefit the smaller house, right? Because if every state only gets 1 delegate, well, then everyone's on an equal playing field, right? Everyone has the same number of delegates. No one would have more power than the other, right? And so this is going to benefit those smaller states because their population would not matter then. So we have this great compromise. So a compromise is a solution in which sides give up some of its demands to reach an agreement, right? So you come into the middle, right? Okay, so you have two sides. Okay, you meet in the middle to have a compromise. So we have a compromise here. We have Roger Sherman of Connecticut. He developed a plan of those two, a compromise of those two plans. So they would have a two-house legislature. Okay, so the legislature being right, the branch of the government that makes the laws. So they are going to have three branches of government, right? Both plans suggested three branches of government, so that they're going to still have that. And so, but in the legislative branch, they would have two houses, okay? One house being the House of Representatives, and this house, the number of delegates each state gets would depend on the population of the state, right? So this is going with the Virginia plan for this house of, right, and it's going to benefit the larger states because depending on how many people you have in your state, that is how many delegates you get, right? You get, a certain number of delegates per number of people in your state, right? So that's why even today, so this is our, our legislature actually today, right? So our House of Representatives, that's why there are like 400, I think 35, 36 people, okay? And that's why like states like California and Illinois and New York, they have a lot more delegates in the House of Representatives than we do in Mississippi. And that is because their states have a larger population, right? Then the second house would be the Senate. The Senate, every state would get two delegates no matter the population. So that's why if there are 50 states, how many do you think senators we have today? We have 100, right? 50 times 2. If every state gets 2 senators, and we have 50 states, 50 times 2, we have 100 senators, and that will not change, right? Every senator, or every state gets 2 senators. And so this became known as the Great Compromise. So what I want you to do on your notes, if you scroll, you'll see, right, that Venn diagram, right? And so you should have already downloaded that PDF. I guess I did not. That PDF, right, in the Module 5 Standard Level Skills folder. Okay, I want the Pearson Module 5 PDF. I want you to, like if we go back to Schoology, right, okay, the Standard Level Skills folder, right, this Pearson Module 5 PDF, okay, download that, but what you're going to do is use page, I believe, 207. Yep, 207, you see this Venn diagram? Okay, I want you to copy over this Venn diagram onto your notes. Okay, I want you to copy this Venn diagram onto your notes. Pause if you need to, but copy over this Venn diagram to your notes, okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and continue with the notes here. All right. So then there's the 3/5 compromise, okay? So just as there are disagreements between, right, the large and the small states, there are also disagreements between the North and the South, right? Again, their economies are dependent on different things. So primarily over slavery. So the question is, would slaves count in the population numbers, right? Again, for every 25 people a state had, they'd get one delegate. And so some of these southern states that had enslaved people, right, were saying, oh, well then our slaves should count towards our population, right? Because then if they did, the southern states, their population would be increased, therefore they would get more delegates to be making decisions and passing laws and making laws in Congress. Well, it's kind of like a double standard because, right, that these people are saying, oh, no, our slaves are, our property, but then also they're wanting them to count towards their population. And so here we have this debate between, the North and South going on of, the North saying, oh, well, that's kind of a double standard. And so they came up with a compromise. Okay, so we have this 3/5 compromise, meaning that 3/5 of enslaved people would count towards the population for delegates. So that's saying for every 5 enslaved people, okay, so five enslaved people, only 3 of them would count towards that state's population. Okay, so for every 5 enslaved people, 3 of them would count towards that slave's population. So not all of the enslaved people are being counted towards that state's population, but southern states are getting some of them being counted towards their state's population. Another disagreement over slavery included whether slavery should be banned as it was in the northern states. So many northern states, actually, after the American Revolution, they banned slavery in their state. Well, so many people are saying it should just be banned in general. Well, a lot of these southern states argued it would ruin their economy. Again, remember the South's economy is dependent on plantations and agriculture. And remember, we learned that their main labor source that they started to use was enslaved people. And so, in the end, a compromise was made again that Congress could not allow the slave trade for 20 years. So, basically, the slave trade would end. So, remember that Atlantic slave trade that we talked about them coming over on the ship, right? We read a lot of Iquiano's narrative about his experience. It would end in 1807, because remember, this is 1787. Okay, so the slave trade ended in 1807. Unfortunately, that did not end slavery, and as we will learn, it only actually got worse after that in the South. Remember, so a lot of these most northern states actually banned slavery right after the war. So here's your analysis question, right? That red question. How could a nation's ideals of freedom, liberty, and democracy be adopted alongside slavery? So, right, we were fighting for freedom from Britain, right? We felt like we were being trapped and enslaved by the British king. We wanted liberty. We wanted freedom. We wanted to be on our own, democracy, to be able to run the country ourselves. How did when we founded our nation on those ideals, how can we do that alongside, but then also keep the institution of slavery, right? So I want you to think about that question. Okay, so go ahead and write that question down by your red question on your notes. Okay, pause if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and continue with the last little bit of our notes here. So, at the completion of the convention, delegates were asked to sign the Constitution. 3 refused to sign due to fears of giving a central government too much power. Again, it was still fearful that this gave the central government too much power, because they still wanted states to be able to have their individual power. Because remember, they were still very loyal to their states. So the Constitution's creation began a process in which states had to improve the Constitution. So each state would hold a convention to approve or reject the plan. This process was known as ratification. Okay, so to ratify something means to approve it. And so each state had to hold a convention saying either they're approving the Constitution or they are rejecting it. And we had to get 9 of the 13 states to approve this plan, this Constitution, in order for it to go into effect. And so we're going to be next week looking at this process of ratification and how we were able to get 9 of the 13 states to vote or approve or ratify the Constitution. Okay, so that is it on our notes. If we could go back to Schoolagino, okay, remember, screenshot those notes and submit that to the 5.2 guided notes, okay? And then the next thing you are doing is this great compromise activity, okay? You're going to use this PDF right here, okay? It's also the Pearson Module 5 PDF, okay? So you already have downloaded it, but you can go ahead, view it, and kick it open to a new tab, right? Again, it's the Pearson Module 5 PDF. We're just attaching it to this assignment as well. So you're using pages 204 to 209. So right here to right here to complete this assignment, okay? So if we start it, okay, it's only about 10 questions again, okay, but all multiple choice here, okay? So you're going to use that, and of course you can use your notes too. If you want to use your notes that you just took, of course, that is more than welcome to use your notes or this Pearson Module 5 PDF as well, okay? Let me know if you guys have any questions, of course, after you've finished all of this. If you finished before time is up of class, please get that missing work in, ladies and gentlemen, okay? You got to get that in. I asked for an extension until about like Sunday night, but that's about all you have. So please get